Allison, and you are tuned in to episode 1 of Stirring the Plot Twist Book Club podcast. Today, one of my favorite book besties is going to be here with me for episode 1, and we will be reviewing Mary Kubica's It's Not Her. This suspenseful thriller takes place in Wisconsin, so we will be pairing it with Wisconsin beer cheese soup in a bread bowl and an up north old fashioned. So before she gets here, come on, meet me at the bar. Hey everyone, and welcome to the cocktail portion of Books, Cooks, and Cocktails with Stirring the Plot Twist. Today we're going to be making an up north old fashioned to go with It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. Takes place up in Wisconsin, so I thought it'd be pretty suiting. We are going to rename this The Poor Emily after one of the main characters, so thought that was a little twisty. So in the bottom of my glass here, I do have 2 maraschino cherries, a sugar cube, and a couple dashes of bitters already muddled together. So to that, I'm going to add some ice carefully. And about 1.5 ounces of Corbel. We're going to top that off with some Sprite, 7-Up, Diet 7-Up, Diet Sprite, whatever you want to use. Just a clear soda. Give that just a little bit of a stir. And garnish it with a couple cherries. Cheers. Ooh, I would not trust that at all. Sort of like the plot of this book. Cheers. Each week, I sit down with a special co-host. We review a book, pair it with a perfect bite, and a perfectly poured cocktail. All right, plot twisters, welcome to episode 1 of Stirring the Plot Twist. I'm here with one of my favorite book besties, Tara. Say hello to Tara. And we are going to be reviewing Mary Kubica's It's Not Her, suspenseful thriller. We've got our up north old fashioned ready to go. I'll be honest with you, the soup was a complete epic fail. So I will be posting the bloopers along with hopefully a good recipe for that. So without further ado, we are going to get into it. All right, Tara, let's talk plot. What was your initial theory about what really happened?
I thought David did it. I thought David did it.
Yeah?
For sure. He was a local. He had that mysterious... The sister had heard him saying, "Don't hurt me," when they were on the back porch that one night. And just the Aunt Courtney was like, kind of gave me creeps when I saw him talking behind the shed. There was just so much mystery around him that I just thought for sure it was lining up that it was him.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with that, but I'm, of course, an overthinker, so I'm like, would they really do that? Would they make it that obvious that soon? But we were meant to think that it was him, but honestly, my initial thought was that it was Reese. It was the daughter.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Yes, that didn't cross my mind, I don't think.
Yeah, from the car ride up there, like she didn't call mom and dad. She called them Emily and Nolan. And she was 17. She was super bitter. They were pretty strict with her, I felt. And yeah.
Well, and I will say that it did cross my mind that maybe it was David and Reese ran away with him. Like she might have been in on it somehow. And it was like a murder of passion, right? They said there was blood everywhere. It was very violent. Usually they say those go hand in hand. But I thought for sure David was in on it.
Yeah.
Especially when he's just happens to be standing outside her cabin. For a while, I thought that it was David. However...
So as the story unfolded, did your mindset change?
Let me say that thrillers are not my genre that I normally. I usually read smut, or self-help books, or darker smut, or taboo smut. So every time they introduced a new character, I was for sure that person was the murderer. Every person but the actual previous 5 years ago murder. Like, I was blown away. Like, I could not catch up on it. I thought every single time they gave you new information, I'm like, oh, that's it. It was definitely them.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess that's kind of the beauty of Aftermath, that you have all these little details that are explainable, but if they're not explained, these innocent moments you look back on with suspicion.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the author's intention as well, because I felt throughout the book, like everybody had some kind of motive to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, with the exception, I never was suspicious of Courtney.
No, I would say that.
But everybody else, or like the little kids, but everybody else she led you to believe there was some kind of suspicion surrounding them. So you're like, oh my gosh. And then it really wasn't until as the story went on, and then toward the end, when she started one by one, you know, removing them from the suspect list, you're like, oh, okay.
But even
well,
like the younger brother, and I'm thinking, would a 14-year-old boy like lose their, you know? But I mean, he was a pretty experienced 14 boy as far as like gambling and drugs and things like that. But at one point, I was thinking it's probably him, right? Because they did give you the dark side of people in the book as the background.
Well, that's not. We're gonna get there.
Yeah,
we're gonna get there. So we're going to go into character checks. So coming back to that, who did you trust the most?
Probably the Aunt Courtney.
Yeah.
Probably
same.
Courtney.
Yeah, that's easy.
But I think that also author's intent, like it wouldn't be from her point of view if she was the killer, more than likely.
Yeah. Or would she? Who did you trust the least?
Probably David. It implanted. I had the seed and I couldn't get past it. And then he disappeared. And then he's, you know, they said he had an alibi because he just randomly gets up and leaves for 3 days at a time, or months, or something like that.
I agree with that.
That's really weird. And just even the owner of the resort saying, "Well, he's not a good employee, but I owe his mom." Like, that's.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to go back because I did not answer the last one, which was, did my theory change as the story unfolded? And it did. And my theory went to Wyatt, the brother, because he was blackmailing. He had, you know, had been selling drugs. And I mean, even when Reese was caught outside and she'd have to Venmo him $20 for him to not tell her parents. You know, and then the whole pink pill thing.
So yes, the whole Benadryl thing. And so that's what I'm saying. They lined it up where you could be like, but is a 14-year-old that smart to kind of come up with those things? But then the detectives obviously thought that because they're like, we went through the trash. We didn't find a blister packet. We didn't find any pills. Come to find out later on, the mom gave him an Ambien.
An Ambien, yes. Okay, so that leads me into my next theory. So Ambien, we actually have a friend who had to take Ambien for a little bit, and she would do the most off-the-wall stuff. And I remember her telling me a story, like in the middle of the night, she got this package on her porch, and she's like, what is this? And it ended up being like 100-pack of sunglasses that she had ordered in the middle of the night while she had taken Ambien. And I was like, what? Wait, that is not a thing. And it is. So then I was like, well, are they going to blame this on Ambien? Like, did he do this and then didn't remember? And then the whole, like, when he started sleepwalking and telling Courtney that if you don't do this, if you don't make my lunch or whatever he said, I'm going to kill you. I'm going, oh my God, it's Ambien.
Well, and they did make it, the way I interpreted was with the mom, she was hit with a bat, like in her lower spine, and that was fractured. So I'm thinking, well, if he's a younger, they said he wasn't small, but then she couldn't move away. So then he would have access to her head where the blunt force trauma was. Is that a little too descriptive?
No, I think it's fine. So, same with you. I trusted Courtney the most, and the least was the brother. And until almost the end, I had my sights on that little 14-year-old. I did. I thought he was doing it. Did your opinion of any character completely flip throughout the story?
Well, the detective, but not throughout this story. No, I felt like they stayed true to. They gave you this detail, and then, like you said, he slept through the murder. The brother slept through the murder, but then Wyatt would sleepwalk. So those things kind of stayed a little consistent. I did feel a little disappointed in Courtney, though, that I'm just thinking she thought her husband was the killer and was like all these things that I'm just like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be married to him anymore if that's your thought of your own husband. But I guess you're looking at everything.
Yeah.
But some of those thoughts she had, and it's honest, her thoughts, would make me question what I think of people.
Well, so they did. So Elliot was Courtney's husband, and he had supposedly went fishing that morning at like 5 a.m. And then he had blood on his shoe. He had the clean cooler, but he said that he had put the fish back, cleaned the cooler, so we had this clean cooler, and then the photos.
And the photos is what got me, that I was just like, oh, if you think that your husband has taken any appropriate photos of your niece, like, that doesn't just come out of the blue. Like, you... Yeah. So my thing with Elliot is I was like, man, I hope this is not the direction that she is going, that he's going to end up being this, like, big creep weirdo. Well, and at first it did say that he recommended this resort because he had been there 5 years earlier, which is when that other girl went missing. So then you're like, Oh, are they sneaking in this detail to see if you're catching on?
Yes. So I do think,
but I still never really thought that it was him.
I don't think I really did either. So of course he was one that was like in the back of my mind, but I was just really hoping that that's not where the story was going. I did not want it to end or to go in the direction of the creepy uncle taking pictures of his niece. But then it was his Facebook page where that went. We'll get into that in a little bit. But so yeah, it was hard to trust Elliot, but at the same time I really hope that that's not where the story was going. So then I think that leads us into our next question, which is, do you think any of the characters were judged too harshly?
I think Elliot was.
Elliot. Poor Elliot, for sure.
He wasn't communicating with Courtney, so she was coming up with these assumptions. One thing I didn't like about him, though, is that Reese's point of view, she had talked about how Uncle Elliot gave her some alcohol at 9 years old. And I'm just like, there is no good intentions from an adult giving a 9-year-old a sip of alcohol. And I know it's a sip, but we're not in the 80s anymore. Yeah, we're not in the 80s anymore. Like, you don't do that, right? So I thought that was a little weird. And that was the only thing that kind of made me kind of, feel a certain way about Elliot. But other than that, I'm like, this poor man. Then you had Reese blackmailing him, saying, I'm going to accuse you.
That was
and I did not like it. Like, and he's going, that is such a serious allegation to say about someone, that someone sexually assaulted you. And she's like, I don't care. I just don't want to get in trouble for being with David. And I was just like, ooh, 17-year-olds are that manipulative, but they can be. But even for that to be like on the forefront of her mind, that the first thing that she goes to when she got caught being in trouble, made me think maybe you and David did do it and you ran away with him.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, man, you
got a dark mind there, girl.
Yeah, super dark mind. All right. So could this tragedy have been prevented?
In the end, I felt like it all came down to that Facebook post where Mr. and Mrs. Matthews saw that, and that's what convinced them to do that. So I guess, yes, if they didn't see that Facebook post, he might not have come in contact with Reese to see it on his own and be prevented. But I also feel like a Facebook post like that, I have never been in that situation, but it's crazy to me to think that your first initial reaction is to get so far out of control you're going to go kidnap this girl that you think is your daughter and kill the parent.
Yes. So I think my least favorite part of this book, which is actually a question that we'll get into too, is the fact that could it have been prevented? Yes, it could have. But now I feel like the way that the story played out was that Mary is putting all of the blame on this Facebook post and on these 10-year-old girls. Putting the picture just to be, little just brats, they're 10, and putting that, is this your missing daughter, up there, because she did resemble her a lot. And it would have been, she was 12, Reese was 17, so it would have fit the 5-year thing. And so now I feel like all of the blame is now put on this Facebook post and on these 10-year-old girls, which kind of sucks.
It does, but isn't that the beauty of aftermath and those innocent explanations of things? We look back on even the choices that we've made and we're like, oh, well, if I would have had all that information, I would have chosen something different. Or, man, if I didn't take this step wouldn't have happened. But you just don't know how things are gonna, how things would end up.
Yeah. Did you sympathize with one side more than the other?
I sympathized with Reese towards the end, before we found out that she was kidnapped and all that kind of things. But just the little remarks, I guess it put me back at a 17-year-old mindset of even the way I talk to my children, and I'll say something to them, but the way that she took what her mom was saying to her and what her mom was meaning, 2 different ways. And so it did kind of...
Give me an example.
So, the pink sweatshirt, right? Aunt Courtney says to Reese, oh, I like your pink sweatshirt. Pink's a good color on you. And immediately Mom said, yeah, she took a $50 sweatshirt and cut it up. Something every parent would probably say. But then in Reese's point of view, she's like, here my aunt complimented me. I was feeling good about it. And now my aunt's looking at me and all she's doing is seeing that I destroyed this sweatshirt and, wasted my mom's money. But just even the heartbreak of her even trying to figure out, oh, I like this boy so much. And then to find out, oh, he's saying the same things to somebody else. Everyone thinks that Reese is kind of, because she's the most vocal in her family. And I think we do this sometimes subconsciously of you're the oldest one, you should know better type of a thing. So like she gets the brunt end of even the brother gambling, the brother selling drugs, but mom doesn't believe her, right? Even, you know, the thinking that the youngest daughter is this innocent person, and Reese is like, no, she steals the iPad and gets on it, which is a 10-year-old thing to do, right? But mom's under this impression she's not on social media, she's not on all these things. So I think that I felt more for Reese towards the end when you get her point of views of things than I did at the beginning, because I kind of felt like you're a snotty 17-year-old. Although I do know, like most 17-year-olds, you go out of the country for a vacation one year and then the next year you're in Hoboken in the middle of a forest, right? Like most 17-year-olds are going to have a sour mood on that.
Yeah. Okay.
But she was even saying, like, it's not that my mom, Emily, or not that Emily did anything wrong. She's like, but she's just mad at the world right now in that stage of her life.
Yeah. So I thought about that question a little bit differently. And like, as far as like how each side, like Wyatt and Reese, would deal with having lost their parents. And also how Courtney and Elliot their lives are now changing as well, having their niece and nephew and other niece, the 3 kids to raise. So that was super interesting on how, because we did not talk about these questions prior to this at all. So
she wouldn't let me.
No, I didn't want to. And so, but yeah, so I kind of took that a completely different way. And so now they're raising, you know, their 3 kids, and how the dynamics of their lives are going to change with going from their 1 10-year-old child to now having 4. And not only just having 4, but having a 17-year-old girl, a 14-year-old boy. Like, these are 2 prime vulnerable ages where you need your parents, you know? And so they're going to have the sadness, and then they're going to have the vulnerability. They're also going to have the anger from losing their parents and things like that. So that was super interesting. I'm glad that we did not talk about that prior, because we did take that question 2 completely different ways.
Or do you even think of, like, could you sympathize with the Matthews, the mom and dad? Of, like, if you thought somebody had your child, what would you do to get that child back? And you're obviously not thinking logically, because if someone stole your child and has been gone for 5 years, they're not going to come back to your small town to vacation in and risk getting caught. But I guess you're so desperate for your child.
Yes, it's definitely
you're not logically thinking.
Yes, but what was weird to me in that sense of Sam Matthews going and kidnapping Reese, essentially, and then murdering her parents, and then taking her home, and his wife was immediately like, well, that's not her.
Yeah.
You know, so away. It was almost like he wanted it to be her so badly that he was just seeing red. He did not see anything else. So yes, I mean, it was hard not to sympathize with him as far as that goes, but I did think, and maybe that is what happens when you're that desperate to find your child. He'd been looking for her, you know, day in and day out for 5 years. So I could see where that desperation would play its part. Oh, yeah.
She had the necklace on too.
And the
so
necklace.
You're like, how did she get the necklace if it's not her?
And then the necklace came from David. So then that brought you back to David.
So
saying that, oh, yes, it was definitely him. You know, so yes, brought that back up. She did have the necklace on. So,
and that was another reason why I kind of thought it was David, because I'm like, when Aunt Courtney was in the Matthews home, and there was something about that picture, and it was the necklace that she couldn't place, and I'm like, it's because David killed both of them. David killed her 5 years ago, and now she killed him, and you know, and kept the replica and gave it to her to wear.
And then they did keep saying, like, then all of a sudden when they were looking for David, and they came looking for him, and she's like, oh, he's just like you said, I owe his mom, he's not a reliable employee, he left 3 days ago, we haven't seen him. And then the detective was just like, oh yeah, it's not him. I mean, I felt like it was so they were just so quick to brush it off that it wasn't him. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know? So, but yes, so that was another part of the story that I was like, is it him? Is it not him?
But I don't know, if I was Mrs. Matthews, would it be like, okay, saying like, calm down, we can't kill her, let's just, do you think she was like trying to buy time a little bit of like, what are we gonna do with this girl now, because now we know?
Well,
I mean, what would you do? Because they
because-
didn't kill her right away, you know what I mean? So I don't think he wanted to. I think he was generally not an evil person.
No, I don't
know?
think he was either. So then, yes, it did make you sympathize a lot for him in that respect, because now all of a sudden he has brutally murdered these two innocent people to get a daughter back that turns out not to be his daughter. And yeah, I think they're like, what the hell are we gonna do now? Are we gonna we're gonna put her in the crawl space. We're gonna put her under the stairs. We're gonna
figure it out, yeah.
And figure it out. Yes.
But then they showed up for the search party, but they say that lots of times killers do that. So I don't know if that was guilt, if that was just to see where they were at in Reese, finding out where Reese is. And he didn't realize his wife was like, come over anytime you want.
Yeah. Yes. But I do think that he was probably trying to keep tabs on the information that they had to know if he was a suspect, and he really never was.
No.
At that point.
So how did you feel in setting the scene that the Northwoods setting impacted the story?
So I thought that it was the perfect setting. One, because like you said, he had been there 5 years prior. But then there was also that part in the story where she looks on his Google searches, and he had Googled how deep that other lake was that was a little ways over from them.
Uncle
Elliot. Yes.
Uncle Elliot Googled how deep that lake was.
Yes. So then that kind of brought you back to him. But then in your mind, you're like, okay, well, there's a ton of lakes around there. And he was fishing. And it was very woodsy. It was secluded. And so, yeah, I thought it was the perfect setting for the story.
I think that it would have to be a vacation place, right? Someplace outside of their normal friend group and environments that would account for all these like misunderstandings. Yeah. For sure. But I do think having it in the woods, it also helped with like the phone signal, them having to just stay in like icky hotel rooms and things like that. But also people just that she randomly came across like at the resort lodge of, oh, someone came missing 5 years ago, that missing poster sign, and how that ties everything together. Those, I think, would be information that would get lost if it was a big touristy place or heavy populated. Yes.
And so it wasn't heavily populated. And it sounded like there was only like a few cottages there. It wasn't like a huge resort where you had like 100 or 200 people there. So that kept it a little bit more suspenseful. So then piggybacking on that with the next one is, do you think that the isolation of everything made it more suspenseful?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the thing with the isolation is because they wouldn't let him leave. And I understand that. They could have been suspects. And they didn't know if the murderer was out there. They wanted to keep him for questioning. But I did think it was odd that everybody else there was able to leave with the exception of them. Like they had to stay there in case the police needed anything, but everybody else who was staying there got to leave. I did find that to be a little weird, which that was probably the only time, but that did lead me into this detective. There's something off about him.
Again, I don't read thrillers, so I just chalk that up to these people have been cleared, they have alibis, they have no motive, get them out of here, go from there.
Yeah, but at that point, Courtney and Elliot, they didn't either, because Courtney had not told the police about Elliot's shoe or the iPad or the clean cooler or anything like that. So they did not have motive or weren't suspects at that time either. So I did think it made it a little bit more suspenseful.
Well, and I thought that though was because they were still looking at Wyatt because right after that conversation when he said you can't leave, that's when he was like, we didn't find any Benadryl bottles, we didn't find any blister packs.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that that's because they were still looking into maybe Wyatt being a suspect. So I didn't chalk it up too much. Other than that they just hadn't ruled that family out yet. Yeah. Again, I was like overanalyzing and trying to connect dots where they're, in the end, all those dots do get connected and explained.
Sure do.
Away. But just even the isolation of finding that cemetery and David being able to take Reese into like the woods and where they get caught by Uncle Elliot, and then even David taking her and her finding and Courtney finding the cemetery and going and finding another body so you're not going to have a cemetery in the middle of a big city or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that when they were talking about, going through those wooded forests before they came to the clearing, I mean, that's a perfect setting for like something bad to happen. It's just ominous of a bad omen.
Yeah. So the next two, would you have made the same choice? So we're going to combine these two because would you have made the same choices in it? Because it does tie into how far would you go to protect your child?
I did find myself questioning Aunt Courtney a little bit when she first came upon the murder scene. That why wouldn't you go find your niece and nephew? Like, I get that you have these little ones, you run into another cottage stranger, I don't care. And I guess that helplessness that she's in the lodge, but thinking something bad could be happening to them right now. How would you live with yourself if you did try to prevent that or something? I don't, and I think that's why they had the two girls leave and go to this crime scene, so that she had a reason not to, but that would have sat heavy on my heart, a struggle of, okay, I have the girls in the lodge now, they're locked up, I'm running back, I'm up there to...
Yes. So, yeah, for sure.
Is that not where you're going with that question?
Well, this is how it ties in about your child. For your child. So, yes, she did have, I thought the same thing. What about your niece and your nephew? However, she has one child. She's 10 years old. And I don't know if I would have left my only child even at the lodge, with somebody that I wasn't sure wasn't the killer. The cops were on their way, and I don't know if
those are one of those things that
or not.
I guess you don't find out until you're in the moment.
Yes, for sure.
Because you're in the moment.
Yeah, I don't know.
If I was Mrs. Matthews, I think I probably would have tried to help my husband, figure out a plan. How do we get out of it? If she's got to go to the crawl space for a couple days while we figure that out, then that's what we need to do to try to get out of it. I think.
Yeah. No, for sure. I would have as well been okay, I don't want to kill the girl.
Yeah, but
we gotta figure this out, Sam.
Yeah,
we gotta figure this out. You just did this, and I would empathize for that and sympathize as well. But why I've watched him do it, and she even says in the book that she stopped going to she didn't want to go to the search party. She stopped searching every day.
Yeah,
he did not. So he was still in that act of desperation where he was still so incredibly desperate to find his daughter that he went and committed this murder.
I guess just nothing that I've been so desperate. Thank goodness, I guess, that my life I haven't suffered trauma like that I would be so desperate that I can even imagine killing somebody. But I'm sure Mr. Matthews didn't imagine that his life would ever get to that point either.
So what we're saying is that we would have made some different choices. We would have been like, Sam, let's get out of here. That's what I would have did. I would have probably been like, okay, put her in a spot where somebody can find her, and let's get out of here.
Yeah, we'll tie her up. We'll make an anonymous call tomorrow to the police saying this is where she's at, but we've wiped out our savings. We're
gone.
We're on the road. We're on the run for the rest of our lives, but it's me and you, Sam.
Yes, me and you, Sam.
But then that also kind of also to protect your child. In Courtney's case, at one point going through her mind was, is my husband child predator? Is he then does that make you look at the relationship with your child too? That whole part just made me icky. It gave me the ick.
Yes.
It made me feel a certain way that I didn't like.
Same, and that's why I think I didn't really let myself think that not Sam, that Elliot was the killer, because like I said earlier, I just did not want this book to go in that direction. Yeah. And so I'm glad
and I didn't
that
think it would. I didn't think that it would, just for the fact that I'm like, if Elliot was going to do that and it was in order because he was so in love with Reese or whatever and he wanted to kidnap her, he wouldn't do that there. Yeah. I wouldn't think, he would have ample opportunity not there.
Yeah.
But
was there anything in the book any twist that happened that genuinely made your jaw drop?
Absolutely. I thought, so we're talking about the murder of a girl 5 years ago, and then the current missing Reese. I absolutely 100% thought that it was the same killer for both girls.
Yeah.
I 100 wasn't confident on 100% on who it was, but I for sure thought it was the same person.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that too. So that was definitely, and that would lead into the next one as well, which is, was there a jaw-dropping moment for you? And probably, and we'll get to that ending part in just a second, but yes, she leads you to believe that the whole time. Same killer. Here's the necklace. Here's the cemetery. Here's it. everything did kind of line up to where we were meant to believe it was going to be the same
it talked
killer
about
for
they were
both
both
girls.
or like the snake tattoo. It lined up the necklace, all of that.
Yes. So getting to the ending part, were you satisfied with the end? Why or why not?
I was, because they told you not only was Reese resolved and found, but they told you who the killer was of the girl who went missing 5 years ago. Had that not been, and you come to your own conclusion. So like, I needed that closure of what happened to that girl 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yes, I didn't see it coming, but I'm glad that they said that it wasn't David, that it was.
So that was my jaw-dropping moment. So you think that it's over. You think the book is over.
Mm-hmm.
And that Reese is alive. And it's Sam Matthews who killed him. And then all of a sudden...
But then you're like, but so what about this other girl who went missing 5 years ago?
Yes.
So like if it would have ended there, I would have been like, but he didn't kill his own daughter 5 years ago. So...
Yes. So then all of a sudden, the very last chapter is Detective Evans, right?
Josh,
Evans?
yeah.
And he goes into this story about how the girl that went missing 5 years ago was best friends with his little sister, and he was drunk one night and ran her over and killed her. So he's been trying to now make amends for that, and he buried her in the cemetery that was behind this resort.
Well, but it was more than that too, though. He was saying how his younger sister and the missing girl would like
make fun of
him, and he was just like, he was following the girl home and was just like trying to like scare her and kind of swerve at her and accidentally hit her, and she fell into the road and he ran over. So
yes. So I did not get closure from this book.
No. What would you need? And his whole thing is like, oh, now I'm a detective because I'm repenting and this is how I make my amends.
Yes.
So what would you have needed to have closure then?
So I got closure from the girl that he killed 5 years ago. So I was glad that we figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
But then for the Matthews, like it sucks that now David, who killed their daughter, is the one arresting him for the murder of these other two.
Detective
Evans. Yes. Is the one arresting Sam Matthews for these murders.
That he got away with, yeah.
That he got away with. And so no, that bothered me that he got away with it. Even though he's on the up and up, and meanwhile I just said I'd take my husband and run away. I would still do that. But yes, so I didn't have closure. Like I need to see something happen to him. So I didn't have closure from that. The other thing that I did not love about the ending at all, probably my least favorite part of the ending of the whole book, honestly, was the fact that we didn't do this, Mary did it, put all the blame on this Facebook post.
Yes.
And so now it's like as they grow up, these 10-year-old girls, like, is that the moral of the story, is be careful what you put on social media?
Yeah, so I mean, Aunt Courtney does have that paragraph, that thought of where she's like, when they grow up, are they going to realize the impact of what they did? No 10-year-old. Your frontal lobe is not closed until you're, 24-ish?
Yeah, but I think when they're older, they will understand that, and like that's putting a lot of guilt on them.
But at the time, they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Like at the time, they couldn't foresee.
Yeah.
All of that.
What was your favorite part of the book?
My favorite part of the book.
No, that is it. There are no second chances there. That is.
You have to edit that part out.
I am not. That is going live. That is not being edited out. But so
I think just when I got to the very end and everything tied together.
Yeah.
And everything, like all the dots were connected. This makes sense. This was an innocent comment that got blown out of proportion when you're in that suspicious mode.
So Reese was this like salty 17-year-old teenager, and I felt a lot of, I know we've overused the word closure in the past couple of minutes, but when Emily opened up and said, I'm just not happy with your dad, this is why we always fight, and she just opened up to Reese opened up to her, and then they had that moment, that mother-daughter, they had that mother-daughter moment when everything just seemed very zen and very calm between them. And then of course she died right away, so that sucks.
You're right. The timing of that conversation, and then she's like, "It's kind of our little secret. I didn't really give your brother the Benadryl. I gave him an Ambien," and they kind of giggled about it. But it was almost like a new beginning for them.
Yeah.
And she kind of tried to go into why I'm so hard on you and those types of things. I thought you're right. It was a very vulnerable, honest conversation between the two of them.
I was glad for Reese, of all the things that Mary Kubica put that character through, that she was able to get that closure with her mom.
Yes.
At the end of the book. All right. So last question. How would you rate?
So again, I don't normally read thrillers.
We got that.
So some things were a little different for me as far as like two different point of views, but the point of views being on different timelines. But I felt like even though that's not my normal genre, I enjoyed the book. I was able to follow along. I was invested in it. I wanted to see what was going to happen next. I would give it like 4.25, 4.5. Okay. I would recommend it. I don't know how it compares to other thrillers, because that's the beauty of this book club, is that you're reading things that you wouldn't normally read.
Yes.
You're exposed to different things. So I enjoyed it, and I liked it. And it's not normally what I would read on my own. Yeah. I'm glad that you read it, because I know it is a little bit outside of your genre. And, but that is exactly what you just said. Even when we had our book club before, it forces you to read books that you don't typically read. So that's why I love them so much. I gave it a solid 4. When I first got done with it, I'm not gonna lie, I gave it 4.75 stars. So on my Goodreads, I ended up giving it 5, because you can't give quarter stars or half stars on there. But then I took it away. Why did you take it away?
I'm gonna tell you. I took it away because I thought about it for a long time, for like days after I read it actually. And I did not like that it was put on the 10-year-old's conscience with the Facebook post. And I didn't like that nothing happened to the detective, to Josh. I didn't like that.
See, and I think that's like what made it good. Like, oh, he got away with it, basically.
Yeah.
Like it,
Yeah.
I didn't mind that.
Yep. So I gave it a solid 4, which is still a good rating. I would definitely recommend it. You too.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
No, give me some soup.
Soup.
No soup for you.
No soup for you. You will get soup later. So thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the first episode of Stirring the Plot Twist, the book club podcast that you didn't even know you needed. And you can tune in next week, next Sunday, where Tara's actually going to be here again. And we are going to be reviewing Reminders of Him. I had said this in a clip prior, but we're also going to be doing just a couple of tidbits about the movie as well, if you want to tune in for that. So we hope you tune in next week. See you soon. Looks like a cozy Wisconsin night to me. Second time is a charm. First time did not turn out well. It was a complete and epic fail. Rumor has it that in Wisconsin, you top it off with some popcorn. So we're going to go ahead and do that as well. Looks like a cozy Wisconsin night to me.